Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Welcome to my YouTube channel Calculus and Mathematics Learning. In today's video, I am going to solve some of the questions based on the topic domain in mathematics. What is domain? Domain is those values of independent variable for which the given function is defined. The independent variable is actually on the right hand side of a function f of x. So f of x is actually the range of the function, which is the output value. If we put some input value, that input value of x is actually the domain of the function, and the output value f of x is actually called the range of the function. So in this video I am going to solve some of the questions based on the domain of the function, which is the most important topic for all type of competitive exams. So the first function is f of x is equal to under root of 16 minus 16 x square. Remember, when under root function is given and the expression given inside the under root function, when the expression is given inside the square root function, then the expression should be greater than or equal to 0. Over here the expression inside the square root is 16 minus 16 x square. It should be greater than or equal to 0 for the function to be defined, because domain is those value of independent variable x for which this function is defined. So if we take a value greater than or equal to 0, this function will be defined. Remember, the square root cannot accept the negative values, because if we put negative value inside the square root, it will give us iota. So iota is imaginary, and domain and range we are dealing with the real, not with the imaginary. That's why we will ignore the negative value and take the value greater than or equal to 0. Now after this, expand this by dividing with 16, so it becomes 16 and 16. Divide the whole inequality with 16. So 16 by 16 gives us 1. 16 cancel out with 16, we are left with 1 minus x square greater than or equal to 0 by 16 gives us 0. Over here we have a formula 1 plus x into 1 minus x greater than or equal to 0. Now over here we cannot apply the zero factor property, because this is not equation, this is actually an inequality. So that's why we will use a number line method over here. Let's suppose this is negative infinity and let's suppose this is positive infinity. This inequality is gives us a value 0 when 1 plus x is equal to 0. So 1 plus x is equal to 0 when the value of x is negative 1. And this becomes 1 minus x is equal to 0. So it gives us the value of x is equal to 1. So these are the two solutions. So over here we will write negative 1 and 1 is actually positive. So we will write on the right hand side the positive value. Now we will check the values that in these three intervals, which interval gives us the positive value. Over here we have greater than or equal, it means that we will take out the positive value, and also the given original function is square root function, that's why we will take the positive value. In between minus 1 and 1, let's suppose I take 0 and put in this inequality, so it becomes 1 plus 0 into, it becomes 1 minus 0. So it gives us 1 and it also gives us 1, so it gives us positive value. So this interval gives positive value. Now check in this interval, let's suppose I take minus 2 over here, so it becomes 1 minus 2 into 1 minus into minus 2. So it gives us positive and it gives us negative. Negative multiply positive gives us negative. So this interval gives negative value. Now check this interval, let's suppose I take 2 over here. So it becomes 1 plus 2 gives us 3 and 1 minus 2 gives us a negative 1. So this interval also gives us negative value. So it means this interval is not our required domain, because original function is square root function which can take only positive value, not negative value. So that's why our domain will be this interval minus 1 and 1. So the required and desired answer will be domain will be equal to minus 1 and 1. Remember, over here we cannot take the open interval, we take closed interval. Why? The meaning of the closed interval means that it accepts minus 1 and 1, because if we put minus 1 over here it gives us 0. And if we put 1 over here it gives us 0, which is defined, which is real, which is not an imaginary. That's why we will write a closed interval over here. So the domain is actually equal to closed interval of minus 1 and 1 for the function under root of 16 minus 16 x square. Now finding the domain of this function f of x is equal to 1 over under root of 16 minus 16 x square. Remember, when the function is given in the form of constant 1 divided by under root expression. So for the function to be defined for the domain for f of x to be defined. So for f of x to be defined, the expression should greater than 0. Why we cannot take equal, just like we take in the previous question, in the previous function. We cannot take equal over here, because if the expression is equal to 0, it gives us 1 over 0 and it gives us undefined. So the function does not give us a real value, it gives us imaginary. That's why this will not be our domain, because in domain we are dealing with the real. That's why we ignore the equal sign and just take 0. Because if we take the values greater than 0, just like 1, it will give us real 1, 2, 3 and goes toward infinity. So now by solving this expression, it becomes 16 or minus 16x square. It should be greater than 0 according to the definition. So now using the same procedure just like we used in the previous problem, so it becomes 1 minus x square greater than 0. Expanding the formula 1 plus x or 1 minus x greater than 0. Use number line method. Let's suppose this is negative infinity. Let's suppose this is positive infinity. This function 1 plus x gives us a value of x0 when the value of x is equal to negative 1, and this gives us a value of x, so actually 1 minus x is equal to 0. So this will give the value of x is equal to 1. So now putting 1 over here, now using the same procedure, if we put the value in between this interval, let's suppose I take the value 0 in between over here, 0. So it gives us 0 and 0 gives us a positive value in this interval, and in this interval it will give us negative value just like in the previous question. So over here inequality is positive, and also the original function is square root function. So we will take the positive value and ignore the negative value. So these are not the required domain. Our required domain will be minus 1 and 1. Domain is equal to minus 1 and 1. But remember the thing which is over here, which is the most necessary thing, we will write a closed interval over here. Why we write closed interval? Closed interval means that we will exclude minus 1 and 1, because if we put minus 1 over here, it gives us 1 over 0. It will give us 1 over 16 minus 16. If we put x1, so it gives us 16, and 16 minus 16 gives us 0, 1 over 0 again gives us infinity, which is not defined. And if we put, it will also give us infinity, which is not defined. That's why we will exclude minus 1 and 1. So this is actually the required domain for the given function. Now finding the domain of this function when one function divided by another function is given. One function divided by another function is given. So for the domain of f of x to be defined, in case of domain, the denominator function should not be equal to 0. Over here in denominator we have x square plus 5x plus 4 should not be equal to 0. Now this is actually the quadratic expression. We will solve it by using factorization. So x square 5x can be written as x plus 4x and plus 4 should not be equal to 0. Take out x common, we are left with x plus 1, and take 4 common inside, we are left with x plus 1 is equal to, x should not equal to 0. So it becomes x should not be equal to negative 1, and x plus 4 can be written as x should not be equal to negative 4. So it means that if we put minus 1 or minus 4 in the denominator, it will give us infinity, which is not defined, which is actually imaginary, and we are dealing actually with the real number. So that's why this will be our domain. So the domain of this function will be real negative into first value is minus 1 and the second one is minus 4. So the domain is minus 1 and minus 4 for this type of function. Now finding the domain of this type of function when one expression or another expression is given. One expression or another expression is given inside a single square root. So the whole expression should be greater than or equal to 0. X plus 9 over x minus 3 should be greater than or equal to 0. Because if we take x plus 9 over x minus 3 less than or equal to 0, just like, so it becomes, let's suppose I take negative 1. So this expression, let's suppose I take negative 1, so negative 1 the root 1 gives us iota, which is imaginary, not real, and in domain we are dealing with the real. That's why under root cannot accept the negative value, it will accept positive value. So greater than or equal to 0. Now after this we cannot shift x minus 3 on the right hand side. Just like if you write it and simplify x plus 9 greater than or equal to 0. This concept is wrong. Why? Because if we put a value just like 3 and less than 3 over here, so it will give us infinity, or less than 3 it gives us negative, which is not real. That will be actually infinity at x is equal to 3 and less than 3 it will give us a negative value, which is not defined. We are dealing with the positive over here. That's why we will multiply or rationalize x minus 3. So rationalization will be x plus 9, x minus 3, and denominator multiply the same x minus 3 greater than or equal to 0. Now by simplification x plus 9 and x minus 3. Over here remember x should not be equal to 3. If we put 3, it gives us 3 minus 3 gives 0. Something over 0 gives us infinity. So our x should not be equal to 3. After this x minus 3 gives us x minus 3 whole square greater than or equal to 0. Now we can shift x minus 3 whole square on the right hand side, because over here if we take or give some input value to the x, either positive or negative value, it will give us a positive value. Why? Because over here we have square which makes a positive or negative value. Both it makes a positive value. That's why we can shift it on the right hand side. So we are left with x plus 9 and x minus 3 greater than or equal to 0. Now using number line method, over here let's suppose we have infinity and over here we have infinity, positive infinity. It gives us negative 9 and over here x gives us 3. So we will take 3 over here and x is equal to negative 9 over here. Now checking in this interval, let's suppose I take minus 3. I suppose to take the mean of these two values. So their mean will be minus 9 plus 3 minus 6 over 2 minus 3. So let's suppose I take minus 3 in this interval. So minus 3 plus 9 gives us positive value and minus 3 gives us negative value. So minus multiply positive gives us negative in this interval. So in this interval automatically it will create a positive value. Let's suppose I take minus 10 over here. So it gives us negative. And minus will give us negative, so they multiply, it gives us positive. And if I take 4 over here, so it gives us 4 plus 9 positive, and 4 minus 3 gives us positive, so this interval will be created positive. Now you know that the original function is square root function which can accept only positive value, and over here also greater than or equal to 0 which can take only positive value. So that's why we will take the positive value and ignore the negative. So this interval will be ignored because this is negative, can give negative. We will take minus infinity to minus 9. Minus infinity to minus 9. Now if we put minus 9 over here, minus 9 plus 9 gives us 0. 0 by something gives us 0. So 0 is defined. It is a valid answer. It is a real. That's why we will write a closed interval over here. And with infinity, remember we always take a closed interval, open interval. If it's infinity, we always take an open interval. And union, we will also take this value 3 to infinity. Now with the 3, we will write a closed interval 3, and with infinity we always take a open interval. Why we take open interval with 3? Because we know that if we put 3 minus 3 it gives us 0, and something over 0 gives us infinity, which is not defined. That's why we will exclude the 3. So for the exclude, we will write a closed open interval over here. So the required domain of this function is minus infinity to minus 9, closed interval, union, open interval 3 to infinity. Now finding the domain of this function, f of x is equal to root of 16 minus x square. Now again we have under root of expression. So the expression which is 16 minus x square, it should be greater than or equal to 0 for the function to be defined. Now 16 can be written as 4 square minus x square greater than or equal to 0. We have formula a square minus b square, which can be written as a plus b into a minus b, and greater than or equal to 0. Now we will use the under number line method. Let's suppose this is positive infinity, let's suppose this is negative infinity. 4 plus x gives us a value negative 4. And 4 minus x will give us, if we make it equal to 0, it gives us a value of x is equal to 4. So let's suppose this is 4. Now we check the interval. In this interval, let's suppose I take 0. So by putting 0 over here, it gives us 4 positive. And putting 0 over here, it gives us positive. So positive gives us positive. And if we put, let's suppose I take minus 5 over here, so it gives us negative. 4 minus 5 gives us negative. And 4 minus into minus gives us positive, so it will give us a value negative. In this interval, it will automatically create the negative. If we let's suppose take 5 over here, it's positive, and 4 minus 5 gives us negative. Negative, positive gives us negative. Now the original function is square root function, which is take only a positive values, and over here we also have a greater than or equal to inequality. So we will ignore the negative values and will take just a positive value, which is minus 4 to 4. So the domain of this function will be minus 4 to 4. And remember the interval over here will be a closed interval, because closed interval means that it can take minus 4 over 4. Minus 4 and 4 it can take, it gives us, if we put 4, minus 4 or 4, it will give us 0, which is the required and valid answer. And it is a real. That's why we will use a closed interval for which the given function is defined. Now finding the domain of this function, f of x is equal to 1 root of x square minus 16. So the expression which is x square minus 16, it should be greater than or equal to 0. Now it can be written as x square minus 16 can be written as 4 square greater than or equal to 0. Now using again the formula a plus b into a minus b greater than or equal to 0. Now use number line method. Let's suppose this is negative infinity, this is positive infinity. Over here x plus 4 gives us negative value when the gives us 0 when the value of x is negative 4, and x minus 4 gives us 0 when the value of x is 4. Now check in this interval, let's suppose I put 0 over here. So 0 plus 4 gives us positive, and 0 minus 4 gives us negative. So minus and plus gives us a negative in this interval. And in this interval, it will automatically give us positive and a positive. Because if I suppose minus 5, so minus 5 plus 4 negative, minus 5 minus 4 negative. So it multiplied gives us positive. And if I take 5, so 5 plus 4 gives us positive. And 5 minus 4, it gives us positive. So positive multiply positive gives us positive. Now original function is square root function which can take positive value. And over here we have also a positive value greater than or equal to. So we will ignore the negative value. So this interval is ignored. We will take this interval minus infinity to minus 4. So minus infinity to minus 4. With infinity we will write a closed interval. It will always take a closed interval. And with negative 4, we will use a closed interval. It can take a 4 because it gives us 0 which is defined. And union, and this interval 4 to infinity, with 4 we will write a closed interval, and with infinity we will write a open interval. With 4 it can accept 4. This is why we will write a closed interval over here. So this is the required domain for this function. Now look at this function f of x is equal to 1 over under root of 16 minus x square. So for the function f of x to be defined, the denominator expression 16 minus x square should be greater than 0. We cannot take it equal to 0 because it will give us infinity. 16 minus x square can be written as 4 square minus x square. Again the formula 4 plus x into 4 minus x. So use number line method, negative infinity, positive infinity. Over here negative 4 and over here positive. Over here 4. So checking the interval, we are required with the original function is square root. We will take the positive value. So the positive value is minus 4 to 4 this interval. This interval will be not our required answer. So minus 4 to 4. Over here we will use open interval because open interval means that we will exclude these two values. Because if we put minus 4, it will give us infinity original function, and 4 it also gives us infinity. So that's why we will exclude the domain is minus 4 to 4. Now at this function 1 over under root x square minus 16, x square minus 16 should be greater than 0. X plus 4 into x minus 4 greater than 0. Use number line method, we are required with the positive value. We will take these values and these value. Minus infinity to minus 4 and 4 to infinity. Why use with 4 open interval? Because at 4 it gives us infinity, which will make our required original function infinity. That's why it is not defined and it is not the valid answer. That's why we exclude 4 over here. So with this I finish my lecture. Thank you for watching. Subscribe my channel and also hit the bell icon to receive the upcoming notification and interesting problem related with mathematics. Thank you.